take a look at adjectives. So adjectives are supposed to describe nouns and pronouns in a sentence, and they also always answer the questions of which one, what kind, or how many. Okay, so for example, here we have which cabinet, that's answered by the blue cabinet. Which tape is answered by duct tape. Which steps is answered by first steps. And then what kind of a tree is answered by willow tree. What kind of a vest is answered by orange vest. What kind of a partner is answered by greedy partner. So willow, orange, and greedy are all adjectives because they're all answering which one, what kind, or how many. Okay, and then write how many hints. That's answered by many hints. How many entrances are answered by 5, and how many reasons are answered by several. So that means that many, 5, and several are also all adjectives. Okay, now notice that a lot of the adjectives come right before the noun that they describe, like blue came right before cabinet, duct came right before tape, orange came right before vest, greedy came right before partner, but not all adjectives are like that. Some adjectives will come after the word that they describe. So for example, these strawberries taste sour. So if you ask which strawberries or what kind of strawberries, that would be answered by sour strawberries. So sour is the adjective that describes the strawberries. Okay, and then Rhonda's change of heart seems strange. That's so if we ask which change was it or what kind of change, that's answered by strange. So that means that strange is the adjective that's describing the change. Okay, and then these pickles are salty. So if we ask which pickles or what kind of pickles, that's answered by salty pickles. So salty is actually the adjective that's describing the pickles. Okay, now let's see. Okay, now let's take a look at adverbs. So for adverbs, they describe verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. Okay, so that's one of the most important differences between adjectives and adverbs is what they're supposed to be describing. So for example, right, the adjectives, they describe nouns or pronouns. So in other words, people, places, or things. And then adverbs, they describe verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. Okay. It's very important to know that adverbs do not always end in ly. So, right, a lot of people are used to thinking that adverbs always have to end in an ly, and they don't. Okay, so the best way to identify the adverb is what kinds of questions it answers and also which words it's describing. Okay, so for example, here we have the car drove where? That's answered by forward. So forward, in other words, is the adverb describing where the car drove. Okay, and then put your baggage where would be answered by below. And then that's answer. So put your baggage below. So if we ask, put your baggage where, that's answered by below. So below is the adverb describing where to put. And then look where is answered by here. So here is an adverb. And then Marvin left when is answered by earlier. So earlier is an adverb describing when Marvin left. Hank called later. So if we ask Hank called when, that's answered by later. And then we'll go when is answered by tomorrow. Okay, and so tomorrow is answering when we will go. Okay. Okay, and then she yelled loudly. So how did she yell? That's answered by loudly. So it means that loudly is an adverb. Okay, and then Hank called when is answered by later. So when did Hank call? Like I said, that's answered by later. So later is describing when Hank called. So later is the adverb. And then we'll go when is answered by tomorrow. So tomorrow is describing when we will go. And then she yelled, "How?" is answered by loudly. And so loudly is describing when she yelled. Okay. And then turtles move how is answered by slowly. So slowly is describing how the turtles move. Okay. And then, so slowly is the adverb. And then the loon called how is answered by mournfully. So mournfully is describing when the loon called. So that means that mournfully is the adverb. And then to what extent could Royce wait? He could hardly wait. So hardly, and then, right, hardly is describing how or to what extent could he wait. Okay. I'm going to bring up some questions on the adjectives versus adverbs. Okay, so here it's saying, is the word in bold an adjective or an adverb? And they're giving us a hint that the word in bold describes the word that is underlined. Okay, so basically it helps to figure out what is the is the word describing, because if the word, like the bold word, is describing a noun or a pronoun, then that means that the word in bold is an adjective. And then if the word and that's underlined is a verb, adjective, or adverb, then that means that the word in bold is an adverb. Okay, so here, the lemonade you made from scratch is so refreshing.
It's adjective,
Mm-hmm,
refreshing.
mm-hmm.
Slightly is the adverb. Correctly is the adverb. Violet is the adjective. Generously is the adverb. Usually is the adjective. Oh,
Usually is an adverb because it seems to be describing how vain. Vain must be an adjective because I think vain is describing the people, and words that describe nouns would be adjectives. So I think that means that vain is an adjective.
slippery is the adjective. Reasonable is the adjective. Tiny is the adjective. Stubborn is the adjective. Rough is an adverb.
So rough is describing the fabric. Fabric is a noun. And so because it's a thing, so that means that rough is an adjective.
Plump is the adjective. Regretfully is the adjective.
What is regretfully describing?
Regretfully describing a
Mm,
request that was denied.
It's not describing the request. It's describing deny, how it was denied.
Regretfully.
Okay,
Adverb.
so deny, yes, is a verb, so that means that regretfully would be an adverb.
Shimmering adverb.
What is shimmering describing? What is shimmering describing?
It's the light.
Okay, and what part of speech is light?
Light is a verb.
It could be, but in this case, is it a verb like an action?
No, ma'am.
This should be a noun, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that means that shimmering must be an adjective.
Okay. Raw is the adverb.
Raw is describing what?
The fish.
Is fish a noun, verb?
Noun.
Then that means that words that describe nouns are adjectives. That means that raw is an adjective.
Okay. Examined closely. It's the adjective.
Well, what part of speech is examined? Is that a thing, like a noun?
No, ma'am.
Then that means that words that only words that describe nouns are adjectives. So that means that closely would be an adverb.
Securely is the adverb. Humorously is the adverb. Surprisingly is the adverb. Pleasantly is the adverb. Squirming is the adjective.
I'm sorry, pardon?
Squirming is the adjective.
Yes.
Gracefully is the adverb. Wrongly is the adverb. Fast is the adjective.
Fast is describing the word fell. Is fell a noun?
No, ma'am.
Then that means that it must be an adverb.
Yes, ma'am.
Basically, if the word is not a noun or a pronoun like he, she, it, they, or a thing, then that means it has to be an adverb.
Yes, ma'am. Wrinkly is the adverb.
Well, wrinkly is describing hands. Is hands a noun?
Yes.
Then that means that it's an adjective. So let's just simplify it to if it's describing a noun, a thing, then it's an adjective. And if it's not, then it must be an adverb.
Yes, ma'am. Refreshing is an adjective. Correctly is an adjective.
Is wrote a noun? Like a thing?
Well, I was thinking it wasn't, but they're doing something, so
So remember, a noun has to be a thing, though.
it correctly is
So
an
if it's
adverb.
not a thing, then
I was thinking of writing itself as a thing.
oh, okay.
Violet is an adverb.
Is violet describing, what word is it describing?
It's describing the gown. It's describing a thing.
So
So
then
it's an
that
adjective.
means, mm-hmm.
Delicate, delicate, delicately adverb. Stubborn is the adjective. Slightly is an adverb. Challenges is an adverb.
All is describing challenges. Oh, or wait. Yeah, all is describing challenges. Is challenges a noun? Like
No,
a thing?
no.
Yes. A challenge is a thing. It's a type of abstract noun.
Okay. Weakly is the adjective.
I'm sorry, pardon?
Weakly is the adjective.
Water, in this case, is being used as a verb. Water could be a noun or it could be a verb. Like they're actually watering, in the process of watering.
Usually is the adverb. Rough is the adverb.
Is fabric a noun? A
Yes,
thing?
ma'am.
Then
Yes,
that
ma'am.
means that it's an adjective. Rough is an adjective.
Generously constructed. Generously is the adverb. Works well. Well is the adverb. Monthly salary. Monthly is the adverb.
Salary is a noun, a thing.
All is an adjective. Late is the adverb.
So late is describing Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller is a noun, a person.
Yes, ma'am. Several is the adverb.
What is several describing?
The tickets.
Is tickets a noun?
Yes, ma'am.
Then
It's an
what is
adjective.
several? Yes.
Quite is an adverb. Daily is an adjective.
Oh, in this case, stroll is being used as an action.
Yes, ma'am. Costly is the adjective. Quite is the adverb. Sickly is an adjective. Friendly is an adjective. Monthly is an adjective. Mm,
It's describing when she dies. Now, if it just said, I purchased color dye or hair dye from the
yes, ma'am.
store, then dye would be a noun. But in this case, it's being used as a verb.
That's exactly what I was thinking of, like someone dyeing their hair, like buying dye, a bottle of dye. That's what I was thinking of.
Okay, yeah, just make sure that you look at that particular context, that the way
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
being used in that sentence.
Hourly is an adverb.
So intervals is a noun.
Reasonable is the adjective. Slippery is the adjective. Heavenly is the adjective. Lovely is the adverb.
Selection is a noun. It's an abstract noun, but it's still a noun.
Yes, ma'am. Orderly is the adjective. Downstairs is the adverb. Many is the adjective. Some is the adjective. Most is the adjective. Oh no. Often. So it's an adverb. Never is never is an adjective. Oh,
What is never
wait,
describing?
it's describing behave. They
And
never
what part of
behave.
speech
Oh,
is
it's
behave?
behave is not a noun.
Right, because is behave a thing, like an
No, ma'am.
object? Then, yeah, then it's not a noun.
So never is the adverb.
Mm-hmm.
Woolly is the adjective.
Okay, that's probably good for that. Okay. For the rest of the time, let's hold on. I think maybe we had started chemistry a while ago. Yeah, back in May. Let me see specifically where we left off and we can continue with that. Okay, it looks like we did not do atomic structure yet, so let's go ahead and start that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so first we need to know that all matter is made of atoms, and we need to now know the parts of atoms. So atoms are anything that have mass and take up space. Even air is considered matter. Okay, so atoms are going to have two parts to them. They have a nucleus and then also an electron cloud. The nucleus has two different kinds of particles. It has neutrons, and then there are also protons. So neutrons, you can try to remember that the NEUTR in neutrons matches the NEUTR in neutral. Neutrons are neutral. And they have a mass of about 1 AMU. So in other words, they have a mass of 1. And then protons, we can try and remember that the P in protons is supposed to be P for positive. Protons are positively charged, and they also have a mass of 1. So both protons and neutrons have a mass of 1. Then the electron cloud, we need to know that the electron cloud contains electrons. Electrons are negatively charged, and their mass is so small, so tiny, that we're basically just going to think about it like nothing. That basically the electrons don't really have any mass to them at all. Okay. Right, so the protons and neutrons are in the nucleus, and then the electrons are all around the nucleus. Okay, so each element, right, each element is going to be unique and different from one another based on the number of protons. Okay, so basically the number of protons, um, yes, basically the number of protons is what makes each element unique and different from one another. So, right, that is like the true difference between every single element on the periodic table. Okay, right. And then all atoms of the same element are going to have the same number of protons. So basically, in other words, if I pick up one carbon atom and then I pick up a totally different carbon atom, they should both have the same number of protons because they're both carbon. And then it's also important to know that let's say that I pick up an atom and then it just happens to have um, 9 protons. And then I pick up another random atom and then it also happens to have 9 protons. That means that they must be the same element because they have the same number of protons. Okay. All right, so the unique number of protons is supposed to be called the atomic number. And the atomic number is supposed to be what's found at the top of each box on the periodic table. Okay, now that's pretty much it for protons, is just know that they are basically giving us the identity of the element. And that every single element is going to have a different number of protons. Okay, but now let's take a look at neutrons. Okay, so isotopes are supposed to be forms of the same element. So they have different number of protons, but they have different masses due to different numbers of neutrons. So if you're wondering, how is that possible? How can it be, how could they be the same element but have different neutrons? Okay, so it's very similar to fruit. So, like if you pick up an orange, and then let's say that we find the mass of an orange, and then we pick up a different orange. Now, the two oranges, they're probably going to be about the same color, the same size, the same shape, the same taste, almost the same everything. Um, but if we were to look at their masses, they probably would not be exactly the same. Okay, So, right, that's basically the way that isotopes work. Let me actually draw this out too. So, like I said, it's like we have the orange and then we have a different orange. They're basically about the same size, the same shape, the same taste, same everything, except when we find its mass. Let's say the mass of this orange is 46.89 grams. But then the mass of this orange is maybe 40 point, actually, maybe 50.21 grams. Like I said, that's exactly the way an isotope would work. If I pick up one carbon atom and then I pick up a totally different carbon atom, even though they're both carbon, they might have a slightly different mass. Okay. Right, so let's see, right? All atoms of the same element have the same properties because they have the same number of protons, but the masses are different because they have different numbers of neutrons. Okay, we also need to understand how to write isotopes. So isotopes, the way that they're written, usually you do the element name dash the mass number. So for example, like carbon dash 16 or iodine dash 139. You just need to know that the number after the dash is supposed to be the mass of the atom.
So the element name is carbon and the mass number is 16.
Yeah, for that isotope.
Yes,
hmm
ma'am. Okay.
Yeah, this is the way we would write the isotope. Sometimes it might not have the full element name. It might just write the element symbol sometimes. So C-16, I-139. So again, you just need to know that the number after the dash is um, the mass. Okay. Okay, then there's another way of writing isotopes, which is with nuclear notation. So for the nuclear notation, it's a little bit backwards from what's on the periodic table. So normally for the periodic table, you have the atomic number at the top of each box, but in nuclear notation, we write the atomic number at the bottom. And normally on the periodic table, the mass is at the bottom But in nuclear notation, the mass is at the top. Mass number. And then we write the element symbol off to the side. Sometimes in nuclear notation, the atomic number may not be written at all, because it's kind of like implied that if you know the element symbol, they think that, like a chemist might think that you could just go ahead and figure out the atomic number. Okay, so if I'm still writing the carbon example, so we could do 16C or 16,6C, like that. Okay. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a look at how to find the number of neutrons. So if a question is asking how many neutrons are in an isotope of let me see, let me pick an element, chromium 54. The very first thing that you need to do is when you see that the question is asking about neutrons, you need the equation mass number equals neutrons plus protons. You never are including electrons. And the reason why is because, remember, electrons don't even have any mass. Remember, they're so small that they don't really have any mass to them at all. Okay. Okay, then after that, we need to figure out the mass number. So it's very important that we first think about or look at if the question is giving us a specific isotope in the question, we should use the mass given and do not use the mass on the periodic table. Why? Because basically the mass on the periodic table is an average. It's supposed to be really an average atomic mass, averaging all of the isotopes for that element all together. Mass on the periodic table is an average, but the question is not asking about an average. It just wants to know for that specific isotope how many neutrons are in it. So only use the mass from that specific isotope. Okay, now, if no specific isotope is given to you, then go ahead and use the mass on the periodic table. Because in that case, you don't have a choice. They're not giving you a mass, so you have to use the mass on the periodic table then. Okay, and then okay, now so basically the mass is 54. So the mass number is 54. 54 equals neutrons plus protons. Okay, now okay, now for 3, we need to figure out the number of protons. And the way that we do that is through the atomic number, and that's on the periodic table. Okay, so let me bring up the periodic table. I don't know the atomic number of chromium. Okay, so chromium's atomic number is 24. So that means 54 equals neutrons plus 24. So now we just subtract to find the number of neutrons. So it must be 30. Okay,